The courtyard was buzzing with life, sunlight spilling over marble fountains and polished uniforms. Everywhere I turned, there was the shine of wealth. Designer watches, glossy shoes, laughter that sounded like it had been rehearsed. I clutched my schedule tighter, my scholarship papers still folded neatly in my bag. I was supposed to meet him here. My boyfriend, the only reason I had fought tooth and nail for this place. 2 years together. 2 years of whispered promises under dim streetlights. We'll be together no matter what. Even if I get into St. Eden's, I'll make sure you come too. And he had. We'd done it. Together. Except when I finally spotted him across the courtyard, standing at the center of a crowd, my stomach dropped. He wasn't alone. An Omega stood pressed against his side, tall, elegant, flawless in a uniform that probably cost more than my entire year's tuition. His manicured hand rested on his chest like it belonged there. His arm curved around his waist like it had always been his. Students gathered, whispering, watching. Some laughed, some looked envious. My chest tightened as I forced my feet forward. "Hey!" My voice cracked, too loud in the open courtyard. His head jerked up. For a moment, surprise flickered in his eyes. Then his lips curled into a smile that didn't reach them. "Oh!" He gave a soft, dismissive laugh. "You're here." The words stung more than they should have. Like I wasn't supposed to be. Like I wasn't wanted. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat. "What's going on?" My voice wavered, but I forced myself to look him in the eye. "Who is he?" The elegant Omega leaned closer, lips brushing his ear as he giggled. "You didn't tell me you had baggage." The crowd laughed. Heat flooded my cheeks. Something inside me snapped. "I'm not baggage. I'm your—" "Don't." His voice cut sharp, colder than I'd ever heard it. He shook his head, brushing me off like dust. "Don't embarrass yourself." I froze. "Look," he continued, his tone clipped, rehearsed. "We had fun. But you don't belong here. You never did. This world isn't for scholarship kids pretending to fit in. I can't waste my time on someone who'll drag me down." The words landed like blows. Each one sharp. Precise. Meant to hurt. The courtyard gasped, whispers flaring like wildfire. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. "You said," my voice cracked. My chest ached. "You promised. Grow up." He smirked now, his arm tightening around her. "Did you really think a guy like me would stay with someone like you in a place like this?" The laughter that followed shattered me. Cruel. Echoing. The kind that sticks to your skin like filth. I turned and ran. I didn't stop to see his face again. Didn't stop to hear the whispers chasing me like knives. My chest burned, my throat raw as I shoved through the crowd, blinded by tears. I needed somewhere to hide. Somewhere to breathe. Somewhere no one would see me falling apart. My feet carried me down unfamiliar hallways, past glittering chandeliers and carved wooden doors. The academy felt endless, suffocating, every corner filled with shadows of laughter and whispers. Finally, I found one door slightly ajar, tucked away in the east wing. Without thinking, I shoved it open. Inside, the air was cooler. Dim. Leather and smoke lingered faintly in the silence. A lounge, quiet, private, untouched by the chaos outside. Relief hit me like air after drowning. I dropped my bag, stumbled to the nearest sofa, and collapsed. My hands shook as I pressed them to my face. Tears spilled freely, harsh and hot, my chest heaving with sobs I couldn't hold back anymore. The betrayal replayed again and again. The smirk on his face, the laughter around me, the way he discarded me like trash. I didn't notice I wasn't alone. Not until a voice cut through the silence, smooth and amused. Well, what do we have here?" I froze. My head snapped up. Across the room, lounging lazily on a black leather sofa, sat an alpha with golden hair and sharp green eyes. His uniform was perfectly tailored, his posture dripping arrogance like it was stitched into him. He tipped a glass toward me, a smirk playing on his lips. "You're not supposed to be here, sweetheart." My stomach lurched. Before I could answer, another figure shifted from the shadows. He was taller, broader, black hair falling over piercing dark eyes. The kind of alpha whose presence filled a room, making air feel heavy. He stared at me like I was prey who had wandered in by mistake. And by the window, leaning with precise stillness, stood a third. Pale, sharp-boned, silver eyes gleaming with quiet calculation. He said nothing, but the weight of his gaze pressed down harder than any words. 3 alphas. Rich. Dangerous. The kind everyone else probably worshipped. And I had just barged into their private den, crying like a child. My cheeks burned. I scrambled to my feet. I didn't know anyone was here. I'll leave. Leave. The golden-haired one rose slowly, his smirk deepening as he sauntered closer. You walk into our space, cry on our couch, and think you can just walk away? His voice dripped mockery, but there was something sharp underneath. The dark-haired alpha chuckled low, stepping closer until the couch pressed into the back of my legs. Look at him. Eyes all red. Hands shaking. Someone broke this Omega. His voice was deep, rough, edged with menace. Tell me, little thing, was it an alpha who tossed you aside? My breath caught, shame tightening my chest. But then something inside me burned hotter than the humiliation. Anger. Maybe, I snapped, surprising even myself. But what's it to you? Do you get off on other people's misery, or are you just that bored? The room stilled. The pale alpha finally spoke, his voice calm but edged like glass. Careful. You don't know who you're talking to. I swallowed, but I refused to lower my gaze. Doesn't matter. You're just entitled alphas who think everyone should bow the second you breathe. Well, not me. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the golden alpha laughed, slow and disbelieving. Oh, he's got teeth. He leaned closer, emerald eyes glinting. Most Omegas cower the second they see us. But you fight even when you're bleeding. Behind me, the dark alpha's heat pressed closer, his breath ghosting my ear. Careful, little Omega. You're in the wrong place. One wrong word, and I might forget to be gentle. My pulse thundered, caught between fear and something I didn't want to name. The pale one tilted his head, gaze sharp. Whoever hurt you, they've already done enough. Go before you regret staying. Humiliation burned hot under my skin. I didn't want to be here, I spat, grabbing my bag. I just needed somewhere quiet. Somewhere your kind hadn't already claimed. Guess that was too much to ask. Their eyes shifted, mockery fading, curiosity sparking. I didn't wait to see what it meant. I shoved past the golden alpha, dodged the shadow of the dark one, and slammed the door behind me. The echo chased me down the hallway, along with the memory of their stares. 3 predators circling, watching, waiting. I thought I'd escaped humiliation when I left that lounge. But fate wasn't finished with me yet. After finally getting my bearings, I made my way to the housing office. The secretary, a polished beta woman, skimmed my papers, lips pursing. Scholarship student, she muttered, typing something into her computer. Unusual, but yes, you're assigned to the East Wing penthouse suite. My stomach dropped. Penthouse. She barely looked up. Yes. Top floor. Room 7. You'll be sharing with 3 others. Confusion rattled through me. But I thought scholarships had standard dorms. Full housing is included in your grant, she said briskly, stamping my file. Report there immediately. I opened my mouth to argue, but she waved me off. Penthouse. 3 others. I didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing polished marble floors, golden fixtures, and a lounge that looked more like a 5-star hotel than a dorm. My sneakers squeaked against the tile as I stepped out, clutching my bag like a shield. Room 7 was at the end of the hall. I took a deep breath, slid in my keycard, and pushed the door open. And froze. Sitting on the sleek leather sofa, sprawled like they owned the world, were the same 3 alphas from the lounge. The golden-haired one lounged with his feet on the table, tossing a ball into the air. The dark-haired one leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his gaze sharp as a knife. The silver-eyed one sat with a book in hand, expression unreadable, but eyes glinting with recognition. My heart plummeted. You've got to be kidding me, I whispered. The golden-haired alpha's smirk widened as he caught the ball midair. Well, if it isn't the little Omega who cried on our couch. Heat scorched my cheeks. You live here? The dark-haired alpha pushed off the wall, slow and deliberate, circling like a predator who'd cornered prey. Correction, he drawled. You live here. With us. No, my stomach twisted. There's no way. The silver-eyed alpha shut his book with a soft thud. Room assignments don't make mistakes. You're ours now. The words sent a shiver through me I didn't want to acknowledge. They rose, one by one, their presence filling the space. You really don't know who we are, do you? The golden-haired one asked, stepping closer until the scent of expensive cologne wrapped around me. I swallowed. Should I? His grin sharpened. Whitmore. Adrian Whitmore. My family owns half the businesses in this city. And this school? Practically built on our money. My stomach sank. The dark-haired alpha's voice rumbled low. Damien Blackwell. Heard of Blackwell Industries? Energy. Steel. Security. Every skyscraper you see out that window, ours. And finally, the silver-eyed alpha stood, his gaze locking on mine like ice pinning me to the spot. Caspian Frost. Frost conglomerate. Technology. Medicine. Politics. You'd be surprised how much of your life we already own. My heart thundered. These weren't just rich brats. These were the heirs. The alphas everyone whispered about. The ones people bowed to without hesitation. And I had insulted them. I had cried in front of them. And now, I was living with them. Whitmore smirked, leaning in close enough that I could feel the heat of his breath. Looks like fate has a twisted sense of humor. Our little Omega crash lands in our den, and now he belongs here. Belongs? My voice cracked, anger spiking through the humiliation. I don't belong to anyone. Blackwell chuckled darkly, eyes glinting. We'll see about that. Frost said nothing, but his eyes, those sharp, silver eyes, didn't waver. He watched me like he already knew how this game would end. And despite the ache in my chest, despite the betrayal still bleeding fresh inside me, a dangerous, unwanted thought crept in. What if fate hadn't made a mistake at all? The academy felt different after that first night. Whispers followed me through every hallway, every classroom. People didn't even bother lowering their voices anymore. That's him, the one who got dumped in the lounge. He's living with the heirs, can you believe it? What kind of strings did he pull? Each word scraped like claws across my skin. I tried to ignore them, bury myself in my notes, but shame was a shadow that never left. And that's when Adrian Whitmore made his move. The cafeteria was alive with chatter when I slipped into the farthest corner I could find, tray trembling in my hands. I barely sat down before a shadow fell across the table. Morning, Owen. My head snapped up. Adrian Whitmore, sun-kissed hair, golden grin, arrogance wrapped in expensive cologne, was sliding into the seat opposite me as if he'd been invited. He plucked the apple off my tray, polishing it on his sleeve. You, I stammered, lowering my voice. Why are you sitting here? Because it's the best seat in the house, he said smoothly, biting into the apple. Juice glistened on his lips when he smirked. Besides, I figured you could use the company. Unless you enjoy being the cafeteria's main attraction. Heat rose in my cheeks. Students at nearby tables had gone quiet, watching. He knew exactly what he was doing, shielding me with his presence. But he wasn't subtle about it. You don't have to, I began. He leaned across the table, closing the space until his hazel eyes gleamed inches from mine. His thumb brushed the corner of my mouth, plucking away a crumb before I even realized it was there. Eat slower, he murmured, voice dropping low enough for only me. Or I'll start to think you're waiting for me to feed you. My breath hitched. A few students gasped. Adrian sat back, grinning like a cat who'd cornered a mouse, leaving me flushed and flustered. He'd made me the center of attention again, but this time, no one dared whisper. Later that day, the whispers returned, sharper this time. Scholarship trash. Doesn't belong here. Bet the heirs are laughing behind his back. I quickened my steps through the courtyard, clutching my bag tighter. But 2 Omegas blocked my path, smirks curling. Poor little scholarship boy, one sneered. Bet you thought you'd marry rich. Guess he found someone better. Their laughter sliced through me. A shove sent me stumbling back against the stone wall. And then silence. A shadow loomed, heavy as thunder. Damien Blackwell stood there, black hair falling into storm-gray eyes that pinned the bullies where they stood. You've got 3 seconds, he growled. They scattered before he even finished, tripping over themselves in their rush to escape. Relief flooded me, until Damien stepped closer. His arm pressed against the wall beside my head, trapping me in place. Days melted into weeks, and the strangeness of my living arrangement never fully dulled. Sharing a penthouse with 3 alpha heirs wasn't something I could ever grow comfortable with, not when every moment seemed designed to remind me that I didn't belong in their world. And yet, I couldn't deny how they had begun to thread themselves into my days. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Adrian appearing when I needed help carrying books, Damien showing up when trouble found me, Caspian somehow always knowing when I was close to burning out. But soon, I realized it wasn't luck. They were watching. Not in the predatory way I'd feared, but in a way that left me unsettled, my chest tightening whenever I thought about it. One evening, I had collapsed into the leather couch in the common lounge, buried beneath a tower of textbooks. The scholarship didn't mean less work. If anything, I had to fight twice as hard to prove I deserved to be here. My eyes burned from hours of memorizing formulas that refused to stick, and my stomach twisted with the sharp edge of hunger I hadn't had time to fix. You look like hell, Adrian's voice drawled, smooth as silk, with just enough teasing to make me want to snap back. I didn't. My pride was too tired to fight. Instead, I lifted my gaze to find him standing there, golden hair gleaming under the warm light, tie undone like he'd just walked out of some glossy magazine. In his hand was a steaming cup of coffee. "For me?" I asked warily. "For you," he said, sliding onto the couch beside me as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Don't look so suspicious. I'm not going to poison you. Yet." His grin was wide, arrogant. Yet when I took the cup, my fingers brushing his, I noticed the quiet undercurrent in his gaze. "Why?" The words slipped out before I could stop it. "Why not?" he countered. But then his smile softened, faint but real. "You work harder than anyone I know here. Harder than me, harder than Caspian. Damien doesn't even open a book." "That's not saying much," I muttered, but my chest ached. Adrian leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You fight for every scrap you get. Do you have any idea how rare that is in this place?" His hand lifted, hesitated, then tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. My pulse skittered at the featherlight touch, the warmth of his skin brushing mine. For a moment, the teasing alpha air wasn't there. Just Adrian, a boy with loneliness in his eyes and a softness he let me see when no one else was watching. It was raining the night I found Damien alone. I had gone to grab a textbook I'd left in the study room, only to pause at the faint sound echoing down the hall. Music. I followed it, expecting a stereo, but froze when I saw him. Damien Blackwell sat at a grand piano tucked in the corner of the penthouse's music room, head bowed, dark hair falling into his eyes. His fingers moved with surprising grace, coaxing something aching and beautiful from the keys. I hadn't thought he was capable of softness. He was sharp edges, a storm barely leashed, the alpha who could silence an entire room with a glance. "But here, you're staring." His voice was low, rough, but not cruel. "I didn't know you played," I admitted, stepping inside. He smirked, though it didn't reach his eyes. "There are a lot of things people don't know about me." The music shifted, deeper, darker, and I felt the weight of it settle in my chest. His hands slowed until the final note faded, leaving silence between us. "My father says it's a waste," he said suddenly, eyes fixed on the keys. "That music makes me weak. That showing anything that isn't power, is weakness." I swallowed. "That's not true." For the first time, he looked up at me. Really looked. And in his storm-gray eyes, I saw not danger, but exhaustion. The kind that came from carrying a legacy too heavy for one person's shoulders. He rose, stepping closer. The air between us tightened. His hand lifted, hovering for a heartbeat before his fingers brushed my jaw, just enough to make my breath hitch. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured, though his thumb traced lightly against my skin. "You'll ruin me." Then he stepped away, leaving me trembling with something I didn't dare name. If Adrian was golden charm and Damien was storm, then Caspian Frost was ice. Calculating. Untouchable. At least, that's what I believed, until the night in the library. I had been struggling with an assignment, scribbling notes in frustration, when his shadow fell across my desk. "You're doing it wrong," he said simply, sliding into the seat opposite me. "I didn't ask for your help." I snapped, but he only tilted his head, cool eyes glinting like frost under moonlight. "You need it," he said, reaching for my notebook. His long fingers brushed mine briefly as he pulled it toward him, and I felt the faintest spark race across my skin. He explained the problem with precise, patient words, his voice low enough that it seemed meant for me alone. And as I watched him, I realized his coldness wasn't indifference. It was armor, a way to survive in a world that demanded he be flawless, untouchable. When our hands touched again, accidental, fleeting, it felt louder than the entire library. He paused, eyes flicking to mine, and for the briefest heartbeat the mask cracked. "You're not what I expected," he said softly. And then he was gone, leaving my notes filled with answers I could barely focus on, my pulse thrumming with questions I wasn't ready to ask. By the time the midterms passed, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. It wasn't just attraction. It wasn't just gratitude. Adrian's laughter lingered in my ears. Damien's music haunted my chest. Caspian's steady voice stayed with me long after he left. 3 alphas. 3 heirs who could have anyone they wanted. And yet, when they looked at me, when they leaned just a little too close, when they let me see the pieces of themselves they hid from the rest of the world, it felt like they were mine. And that terrified me more than anything. For a while, it felt like life had finally settled into something steady. I had learned to navigate the rhythm of the penthouse, Adrian's late-night banter spilling from the kitchen, Damien's quiet presence like a shadow in the hallways, Caspian's silence as sharp as glass in the study. It was strange, but in a way that made me almost forget how precarious my place here really was. But peace never lasts long in a place built on power. It started with whispers. At first, I ignored them. The stairs in the cafeteria, the muffled laughter behind me in the hallways. Those things weren't new. I'd been living with them since the first day I walked onto campus as the scholarship kid. What cut deeper was the way the whispers sharpened, shaped into words I couldn't unhear. He didn't earn that scholarship. Everyone knows it. Pathetic, probably slept his way in. His ex said he begged to follow him here. Guess we all know why. Each word felt like a blade, but I forced myself to keep walking, chin up, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was strong enough to survive this. And then I saw him. Ethan. My ex. The boy I had given up so much for. The reason I had even dared to dream of this academy. He was leaning casually against the wall near the courtyard, surrounded by a cluster of students who hung on his every word. His smile was practiced, the kind that used to make me feel safe but now only made me sick. When his eyes landed on me, the smile sharpened into something cruel. "Speak of the devil," he said loudly, his voice carrying. "Look who finally crawled out of hiding." The group turned toward me. Heat burned under my skin. "I told you all, didn't I?" Ethan continued, grinning like this was all some great joke. He only got in because he was clinging to me. Poor little Omega couldn't make it on his own. So he followed me here and let the scholarship committee take pity on him. A murmur ran through the crowd, amused and poisonous. My throat closed. I wanted to shout, to tell them it wasn't true, that I had fought tooth and nail for this place. But my voice wouldn't come. The humiliation clawed up my chest, choking me. And then a new voice cut through the noise. "Funny," Adrian said, his golden smile flashing as he stepped into the circle. "Because I thought pity was the only reason anyone tolerated you, Ethan." The crowd stilled. Adrian's charisma didn't just draw attention, it demanded it. He sauntered closer, hands in his pockets, looking every inch the untouchable air. Ethan's smirk faltered. "What are you?" "You're loud," Adrian interrupted smoothly, tilting his head. "But volume doesn't make lies true." His gaze flicked briefly to me, warm and steady, before he turned back to Ethan. "If you're that desperate for relevance, might I suggest joining the debate team? At least then someone might pretend to care about your opinion." Laughter rippled through the students, though none of it was directed at me anymore. Then Damien appeared. His presence was quieter, heavier. He didn't speak at first. He just stepped into the space beside me, tall and unmovable, his storm-gray eyes fixed on Ethan like a predator sizing up prey. "You've said enough," Damien growled. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a threat. The air around us tightened, and Ethan paled. Caspian was the last to arrive. He didn't stride or glare. He simply was, his sharp, cold gaze pinning Ethan where he stood. "Your logic is flawed," Caspian said calmly, his voice precise and cutting. "If scholarships were handed out as easily as you claim, you'd be holding one yourself. Unless, of course, the Academy also took one look at your transcripts and realized mediocrity isn't worth rewarding." A stunned silence fell. For the first time, Ethan had no comeback. His face flushed an ugly red as he turned on his heel and stormed away, the crowd parting to let him through. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt small, raw, exposed in a way I couldn't explain. By the time I stumbled back to the penthouse that night, my legs were trembling. I wanted nothing more than to curl up in bed and disappear. But the alphas were waiting. Adrian was sprawled on the couch, tossing a pillow into the air with casual ease. Damien leaned against the wall, arms crossed, while Caspian sat at the table with a book open in front of him, though his eyes weren't on the page. The moment I entered, 3 sets of eyes turned toward me. "You okay?" Adrian asked gently, his usual cockiness muted. I nodded stiffly, though I knew the lie was transparent. "Don't bother lying," Damien said, pushing off the wall. "He humiliated you. That matters." "It matters only if you let it define you," Caspian countered, closing his book with a decisive snap. His gaze softened as it landed on me. "And you don't have to." Their words tangled in my chest until I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Why are you doing this?" I burst out, my voice cracking. "Why do you care?" "I'm just—" "Stop," Adrian cut in firmly. He stood and crossed the space between us, tilting my chin up with a finger. His golden eyes burned with sincerity. "You're not just anything." I swallowed hard, unable to look away. The hours that followed blurred into something I couldn't name. Adrian made me laugh, really laugh, for the first time in days, his playful jabs so ridiculous I couldn't help but smile through the ache in my chest. Damien sat beside me in silence, steady and grounding. He didn't offer empty words. He didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to make the shame fade into something bearable. And later, when the others had drifted off, Caspian found me on the balcony, the night air cool against my skin. He didn't look at me right away. Instead, he leaned against the railing beside me, his voice low. "Rumors are noise," he said. "They fade. But truth stays." When he finally turned his head, his gaze was steady, piercing. "And the truth is, you belong here more than half of them." The words hit deeper than I expected. For a moment, I wanted to believe him. By the time I fell into bed, my heart was a tangled mess of emotions I couldn't untangle. Adrian's warmth still lingered on my skin. Damien's silent strength echoed in my chest. Caspian's words replayed in my mind, sharper than any blade. 3 alphas. 3 heirs. The days after Ethan's public stunt blurred together, but not in the way I expected. I thought the whispers would break me, thought the weight of humiliation would send me running from this academy with my head down. Instead, I found myself held. Not openly. Not in ways the rest of the school could see. But in the quiet of the penthouse, when the world's noise faded, I was never alone. Adrian made me laugh when I didn't think I could. Damien made me feel safe when I thought I'd never belong. And Caspian made me feel seen in a way that terrified me, because it was so much easier to be invisible. But the more time passed, the more impossible it became to deny it. My heart wasn't choosing between them. It was opening to all 3. The academy didn't forget Ethan's words, even if they stopped saying them to my face. The whispers shifted, mutating into something worse. "He's with them, isn't he? All 3. Disgusting. Doesn't he know Omegas are supposed to choose one alpha?" I pretended not to hear. But then came the letter, slipped under the penthouse door in harsh ink. "Omegas like you don't belong with heirs. Get out before you ruin them." My hands shook as I read it. Damien's jaw clenched, Adrian's easy grin vanished, and Caspian only folded it neatly, as if tucking the thread away where it couldn't reach me. "You're not going anywhere," Caspian said finally, voice steady as stone. And in that moment, with all 3 of them staring at me as though my place was already theirs, something inside me broke loose. The signs had been there all along, the way my instincts roared near them, the way my body both calmed and sparked under their presence. I wasn't torn between them because I couldn't choose. It was because I wasn't meant to. I was rare, an Omega who could bond with more than one alpha. The thought terrified me, but it also felt right. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the glittering city lights. My chest ached with everything I couldn't say. Adrian was the first to join me, tossing a blanket over my shoulders before leaning down, his face close to mine. "You're freezing," he murmured. I meant to laugh it off, but instead my breath caught when his hand brushed my cheek. His grin softened, the usual teasing melting away. Then, slowly, carefully, he pressed his lips to mine. It was warm, sweet, a promise wrapped in mischief. When he pulled back, my pulse was racing, and Damien was suddenly there, dropping onto the couch beside me. He didn't ask permission. He simply cupped the back of my neck and kissed me, harder, deeper, until the blanket slipped from my shoulders and I was clutching his shirt just to stay upright. My head spun, my lips tingling, when Damien finally pulled back. And then Caspian was in front of me, crouched low, his eyes burning like winter fire. He didn't rush. He waited, gaze locked on mine, until I leaned forward on my own. The kiss he gave me was slow, deliberate, every brush of his lips unraveling me. By the time I pulled away, I was shaking, not with fear, but with the weight of finally knowing. I wasn't choosing. I couldn't, because my heart wasn't breaking itself into pieces for them. It was whole, and it belonged to all 3. As I sat there, their warmth closing in on every side, I realized something the rest of the world might never accept. I wasn't prey caught in a trap. I was theirs, and they were mine.